Want to start saving money and energy at home? Eversource, proud sponsor of Energize Connecticut, is here to help with our in-home energy service. For just $50, our certified technicians will give you a unique home energy score and conduct on-the-spot services. Plus, you'll get rebates and incentives on efficiency upgrades, like improved insulation to stay comfortable and save money all year round. So don't wait. Go to eversource.com to get started today. Paid for by a charge on customer energy bills.
This is MuggleCast, MuggleNet.com's brand new podcasting feature, Episode 1, for August 7th, 2005. If you haven't finished reading Book 6 yet, please do not listen to this podcast, as we do talk about several different spoilers.
Welcome to MuggleCast. I'm Ben Shane.
I'm Andrew Sims.
And I'm Kevin Steck.
This is the first edition of a brand new feature brought to you by MuggleNet.com. Each week our discussion will be centered around one topic. This week we will be discussing the recently released 6th book, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. But first, we need to take a look at this past week's news. Within the past week, we've seen a lot of news for the 4th movie, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. A lot of brand new pictures have also been released. Kevin and Andrew, what do you guys think?
Okay, well, I'm really thinking this movie is going to be one of the best ones yet. And I said that about Prisoner of Azkaban too, but this one I really think is going to be good. The director, Mike Newell, he directed Mona Lisa's Smile, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and he did some TV series. But if you look at his past experience with movies, Goblet of Fire hasn't really fit in with it. But from what I see, I think it's going to be looking pretty good.
See, the thing is that I think this movie is going to be better for the Harry Potter fans, as opposed to Prisoner of Azkaban, which was better for the person who has never read Harry Potter before.
Yeah,
the problem that everyone had a problem with Prisoner of Azkaban because it cut out so much stuff that we deemed vital in the Harry Potter fandom.
I agree with you to an extent, but see, the problem was with Prisoner of Azkaban is that a lot of things really weren't explained. Like, why did Harry cast a stag at the end of the movie to save his past self? A lot of things really weren't explained in Prisoner of Azkaban.
Especially,
it's really going to be hard to please the Harry Potter purists, so to speak.
Same thing with the Marauders map. I mean, that plays a key role in the future books, and they didn't even explain where it came from.
Yeah, and Alfonso, he was very artistic. When you looked at the movie, you were like, it was all about the camera shots with him and stuff like that.
And like I said, I mean, it's the best movie for people who are just coming in to watch a good movie. It's not a movie for those who have read all the books religiously and then decided, hey, I want to see this movie because it's a Harry Potter movie.
Right, but we have to realize is that Warner Brothers isn't about that. They're not about pleasing the Harry Potter purists, like I said. Yeah. They're more about making the millions and millions of dollars, pleasing the average Joe and his kids, and that type of thing. And with the upcoming movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, I've had several problems with it that are going to pretty much make a lot of people mad. I'd like to point out in the recent some of the photos we've seen recently, there was one of the 4 Triwizard champions. You can see this picture on the side if you haven't seen it yet. But it has Harry, Cedric, Victor Crumb, and Fleur Delacour standing on a dock. And the only problem is that Victor Crumb is short and stocky when he was supposed to be tall and skinny. Just things like this is what's going to upset people.
Yeah, but I don't think the small details are really that important. I mean, yes, it helps the characterization, but it really doesn't. I think that what people are concerned with is getting the overall plot of the movie out, and what a lot of people are concerned with is that the movie is going to be at most 3 hours long, and we're looking at a book that was upwards of 600 pages?
700
pages? Exactly. And it's obviously had to cut a bunch of stuff. We have a bunch of pictures showing at least two of the tasks, meaning that they're filling all that time with the Triwizard tasks, which is good, but at the same time you're losing all that back information about Hogwarts.
Right. Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the main things that they promote in this movie, and I think the Triwizard Tournament is going to be the real thing that they focus on. The teaser trailer, the new website, the Goblet of Fire, gobletofire.com website. It's all surrounded by the tournament, and I really think that's what it's going to do.
Now, do you think they're going to include the that scene in the beginning with Voldemort?
Actually, I think that
because it was a violent scene.
But see, the issue is they said that Harry's not going to be at the Dursleys. So what I foresee happening is Harry having that dream and then waking up at the Burrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Where because they said that
but
the
even
Dursleys
that scene though.
The Dursleys have been cut from Goblet of Fire.
Yeah. But even
And
that
plus with
scene,
time
do you
constraints.
actually think they're going to show it?
Do we have a rating for this movie yet? I haven't heard anything. Have you?
Actually, who was it? I think it was IMDb posted. I'm not sure who exactly, but someone said it was PG. Although the Goblet of Fire website still says not yet rated. But I think it's pretty much assumed it's going to be PG.
Yeah, but isn't that information posted on the web? I mean, aren't they required to display the rating of a film before
Absolutely,
it's released?
but it hasn't been. It probably hasn't gone to the MPAA yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
And it's such a long. I mean, it's a couple months away, but at the same time, it's sort of, they can cut it as close as they want, so long as they have it up in time for people to know what the rating is.
And I think it would be stupid for Warner Brothers to try to go for a PG-13. Although that might appeal to more adults, but
it would be shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, personally, I think that the movie is going to be dark enough than the past movies that it's going to need to be rated PG-13 because it's if we want to give the movie an appropriate rating based off the book. I think that the book should be PG-13 because after the death that's happened in the book and all those things. But see, the difference comes in is that when people read the book, when an 8-year-old reads the book, it's just their own imagination, and they may not completely understand the death, right? But then when they watch the movie, they're going to see Cedric Diggory die. They're going to see all these things happen, which is where the real issue comes in. So I feel that it's going to have to be rated PG-13.
Do 8-year-olds really read this book? Is it? Because my brother,
quite a few kids do. I mean, it's not really the 8-year-olds reading it; it's their parents reading it to the 8-year-olds.
That's true.
And the problem,
I think kids would be so intimidated by the length of it. Unless you're really into Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So an average kid who just happens to maybe want to get into it now looks at Goblet of Fire or even Half-Blood Prince and they say, well.
But at the same time, I think they could show some of those scenes that you're describing a little less innocent, a little more innocent, I should say. For example, remember how they handled the whole Harry flashback to seeing his parents die, where they just showed the green flash? I mean, they don't have to show him physically dying. They could just show a green flash and show him on the ground.
Right.
Which isn't, I mean, it gets a point across, but at the same time, it's not that disturbing. One thing I am concerned about, though, is like how do you pronounce it? Crucio?
Yeah.
The curse. I mean, how do you show that? And that's constantly used throughout the books. So, that kind of thing where I guess they could show pain without, making it too violent, but.
Right. An 8-year-old or a 10-year-old even, or anybody seeing a person like the way J.K. Rowling describes the Cruciatus curse in the books is it's kind of gruesome, Just like the spiders with the imposter Moody in the 4th movie would be terrifying for a little kid. So I'm really excited to see how it shapes out. I think it's going to end up being rated PG-13. The movie is out in the United States on November 18th of this year. And Warner Brothers recently released a list of release dates for many countries throughout the world. The Philippines gets the movie the earliest on November 16th, which I would see how they would because I don't know what time zone they're in. It may be further ahead of us. So when it's November 16th there, they may be behind us. So when it's November 16th there, it may already be the 17th at midnight here. Well, now I think it's time that we move on to this week's topic, where we're discussing Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. The book's been out for 3 weeks now. What do you guys think? What are your initial thoughts about the book? What would you rate it?
First of all, before we even get to that, I think we should go through a couple stats. There was 10.8 million copies for the first run through print. Of those, 6.9 million were sold in the first 24 hours, which is amazing. Comparing it even to the other Harry Potter books. Borders sold 850,000. Barnes & Noble sold over 1 million. Amazon had over 1.5 million pre-orders. So it was definitely in demand, and I think it was a huge success.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I've read the book twice now since it's been released, and one thing that I noticed with this book is that it felt as though J.K. Rowling was catching up with herself with information. The book had a lot more narrative than the previous books. Did you notice that at all? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
and it upset a few people because it wasn't the typical Harry Potter book, because it really didn't show Hogwarts all that much. It showed a lot of back information. But at the same time, in response to that, I mean, I would think that the reason why she fed us this book was because she wants to set it up for the perfect book set.
Definitely. Yeah.
She wants it so that it's absolutely perfect. And I mean, she knows it's the last book. She's had those last 2 chapters written for, 13 years, and she wants it as perfect as she can make any Harry Potter book.
Yeah, and she said so herself that, in the end, it's actually going to be bittersweet for her because, Harry Potter has basically turned her life from being a lonely mother on welfare to a billionaire who's living in a multi-million-dollar mansion. It's that type of thing.
I think she's going to enjoy it. I think she's going to be glad that it's done because she's had so much media exposure that it's hard to live normally.
Right.
And she said that in her interviews and stuff where they asked her specifically, how are you going to, expose your children to this?
Right.
And, she said she's trying not to. She's trying to make it so they have a normal childhood without all this coverage.
Right.
Because all that coverage can make any person go crazy,
And she's just hoping that life after Harry Potter, it sort of gets back to normal, You see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Although I think it's going to take a couple of years to,
for the aura
down.
to die down,
Especially since the movies are still coming out, and she has all that exposure.
Now let's get back to the actual text of this new Harry Potter book. What did you guys actually think of the book itself? Was it the best in the series? Where does it rank in terms of her past writing? This new book.
For each book, I've been saying each one has been my favorite, but I think this one is definitely my favorite just because of the way, like Kevin was saying, it's definitely going to be a big transition. It's a big transition into book 7, and I think it really stands out just because how it is really different from the rest of the books.
Right, it's really an outlier in comparison to books 1 through 5.
Right.
And I thought it was really the best book yet. Just the way she integrated everything and how, it sort of reminded me of Prisoner of Azkaban, where it isn't the build up to the Harry fighting Voldemort scene.
Yeah.
It was just the strength. It was so much different than the other books that it set it apart, and it was really quite unique.
I don't think that it was the best book. I'm very big on the Hogwarts thing, but at the same time, I really do like it the most because of the information. I really felt it important that she got that information out,
Do you think Harry's going to keep with his word? Not going to Hogwarts like you said at the very end?
I'm fairly positive. Not because Harry said it, but because J.K. Rowling wrote it. She tends to be good to her word, and when she writes something like that, she means it. You know what I mean?
But Kevin, you need to realize that Harry's going to have to return to Hogwarts just for the sheer fact that it has so many resources. But I do agree that it's not going to be regular school, and that's going to be understandable.
I don't think he's going to be returning to Hogwarts for school. I should clarify that. I think he will be returning for either Horcrux or information. But he's definitely not returning for schooling. I think he's done with the schooling. I mean, when J.K. Rowling wrote that, I don't think she had any intention of making it so that he would never go back.
Right.
I think she meant exactly that. He wouldn't be going back for schooling. He's now old enough to say, no, I don't want to go to school, and he now has a responsibility that he needs to fulfill, you know? And she gave him every reason not to go back.
Exactly.
So, I mean, within this 7th book, she essentially has, 600, 700 pages to help him find the Horcruxes and then...
Save the Wizarding World.
Exactly. Yep. And speaking of Horcruxes, did you guys pick out the Horcrux that she mentioned in book 5?
There's been so many theories on that.
We'll get that a little bit. We'll get to that a little
yeah.
bit later. As Andrew mentioned with all those statistics, that within the first edition of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, like all the first edition printing, there were millions upon millions of copies printed, and they're actually misprinted copies, which in the end somehow are going to be worth more.
People have, when people find their misprinted books, they get all excited, and it's understandable. But when you think about it, there's 10.8 million copies. It's bound to happen. People. There are all kinds of mistakes just from pages missing. People would send us pictures. Look in my misprinted book, and we were all impressed and everything. But it's bound to happen. But is it going to be rare? I mean, is it going to be worth a lot? I think some hardcore collectors might like to have this.
But I really don't think it's going to be.
I think the thing that's going to be worth money is the signed copies. Those are always the ones that get the money. Maybe if you have a signed.
Misprinted copy.
Exactly. You're all set. Keep that for 10 years and you'll be separate.
Killing two birds with one stone.
So, in this recent book, ever since the beginning of the series, J.K. Rowling has sort of had the so-called running bits, like if you've read Wizarding World Press's books, The Ultimate Unofficial Guide to the Mysteries of Harry Potter, a recent one was just out. Everyone should go out and buy it. But the thing is that they mentioned these running bits, like the number 7. In each book, we continue to mention the number 7 with everything.
She called a lot of attention to 7 this time, though.
Yes, with the Horcruxes Horcruxes, which, if any of you perhaps have forgotten, they're each individual piece of Voldemort's soul, which is keeping him immortal at the moment, which Harry must destroy in order to defeat Voldemort and essentially save the Wizarding World. We know what a few of the Horcruxes are. The Marvologon's ring, which we saw in the pensive in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I mean, not Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, but Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And Tom Riddle's diary was also believed to be a Horcrux.
So that's
and Dumbledore has several theories which he thinks are the Horcruxes. For example, Nagini, Lord Voldemort's snake, which he seems to have quite a bit of control on. And what do you guys think?
Well, this is getting back to what I was mentioning in Order of the Phoenix. I mean, she said in that interview with Emerson and Melissa that within a week she expects at least some fans to pick out the Horcruxes. Exactly. But if you read it carefully, she says at least one, meaning she has hidden more than one within the books. One of them is almost definite, which is the locket within the Black's house, I should say, Sirius, and that's a locket that they mentioned they couldn't open.
Right.
A lot of people think that's going to play a vital role, especially since the house has been being robbed, essentially, And,
that's one of the big theories, but we'll get into that later.
Oh, yeah.
But who else? Then the genie, Voldemort's snake. I think that would be a very interesting one for Harry to go at and try to...
kill, yeah.
Right, because it's 12 feet long, and where's it hiding? Or where is it at? It's
Voldemort's personal snake.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time finding that.
Well, and not to mention, I mean, there's only a few instances that he separates from that snake. So it's got to be one of those things like, how do you get the snake alone without the master?
Right. But see, I've heard a recent theory about Nagini actually being the snake that Harry released in Book 1. Do you remember the Brazilian python or whatever it was in the first book that he released at the zoo and then it took off? I think it would be very interesting that if that snake turned out to be the one that was Nagini.
It really would. That would be it would make a lot of people mad because it's one of those things that sits right in front of your face for quite a while and you never register, you know? And
Right.
I know that J.K. Rowling has a habit of uh, um, dropping big things on us like that, you know?
And
So,
then Nagini made appearances in, well, possibly book 1, book 4 in the beginning, and then also in book 5 when Harry saw the snake attacking Arthur Weasley in one of his
yeah,
dreams.
Exactly.
yep.
Um,
Now, have you guys heard that
he saw
theory
that.
about Harry?
What?
Have you
So,
heard
Harry
that
being
theory
a
about
Horcrux?
Harry? Yeah, a lot of people have been posing that to me in questions in my email, and I
See,
just want to know
the
what you
thing
guys
that
think
the thing
about it.
that completely destroys that theory. Tons of people have sent this in. Something such
Loads
as
of people.
Harry's scar being a Horcrux or Harry himself being a Horcrux.
Yeah, it's
The
a
only
popular
issue
one.
here is that that Dumbledore told Harry that he has to destroy each individual Horcrux, then destroy the one that Voldemort is inhabiting, the one that gave him his body back. The thing is, Harry would have to first kill himself and then kill Voldemort in order to save the Wizarding World, which really doesn't seem very likely. What
But
do
I
you
think that's why they suggested the scar, because I believe if remember the first book when Dumbledore introduced Harry, and McGonagall, I believe, made a comment about Harry's scar and Dumbledore removing it, and he said even if I could, scars tend to come useful every once in a while. I have one of
Yeah, I
a
think I
perfect
remember
map
that.
of the
Yeah.
London
Yeah.
Underground. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he suggested removing it.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people have been sending to me, and I mean, I'm not I can't make a clear judgment whether it's, you know, a possible theory or not, but they've been saying that it's possible that Harry will have to remove his own scar and
Somehow.
break the connection between him and Voldemort
But
completely.
yeah, that is very interesting. That the scar seems to be a central thing throughout the
It does.
entire books because it's what
It
connects
does.
Harry to Voldemort at the very
And
That's why
beginning.
so
it's
many
what
people-
identified Harry.
Yeah.
You know, it's the
That's
thing
what
that
makes so many
people
people think he's a Horcrux. Everyone
And
thinks,
in
well,
the recent interview with J.K. Rowling, Emerson asked if the last word of Book 7 is still Scar, and J.K. Rowling said that right now it is. So I think that I do agree with you now that even though Dumbledore didn't know about the Horcruxes initially in Book 1, he didn't find out about that until after the Tom Marvolo Riddle diary. So it does
Exactly.
make sense that he says scars come in handy, and at
Yep.
the end, Harry's scar does come in handy in defeating Lord Voldemort. That is very interesting.
And I think it would be ironic, you know, it would be like
yeah.
the perfect.
The thing that Voldemort used to mark Harry that has made him so famous.
It's the thing that will kill him.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
But the thing that I think is going to be very difficult is Harry finding all the Horcruxes. There are still several of them up in the air.
And there's.
Right.
You see, one thing that I was upset with this book is that it didn't seem. I think J.K. Rowling mentioned it in Emerson and Melissa's interview. She mentioned that he has a lot of resources that we don't realize yet.
Mm-hmm.
But what upset me was I was expecting Harry to do at least put some effort into learning things that normal students wouldn't, because at the end of book 5 he knew that Voldemort was back. He had started Dumbledore's army, and then all of a sudden it just seems like he forgot about, forgot about the danger and stuff. And I'm not sure about you guys, but if I knew someone was coming to kill me, I'd do everything possible to learn
And
the
to
skills
train,
that would protect me.
and train your friends. Your friends
Exactly.
to fight the same things. Yeah, and I
A
think
lot of
Harry,
people were upset about Dumbledore's army.
Yeah, I wish it would have returned, but it did come in handy.
That was a very
because-
popular subject.
And they carried.
It was very popular, yeah.
They continually carried around those rings. I mean, not those rings, but those coins
Coins.
that they used to
Communicate.
alert for communication. And
Which was, I think that was another slap in the face in this book, because Draco used those as a way to infiltrate Hogwarts. So,
yeah,
I think that was another thing. Like, J.K. Rowling was trying to point out that although the good side has a lot of resources, the bad side also does. Should try and balance it.
Has Draco been branded with the Dark Mark yet, or do we know?
Yes. Well, I mean, they don't know it for sure, but they have a suspicion
But see,
because of
the
him
thing,
covering up his arm.
but see, the issue is that Hermione admitted that the way where she got the idea for those coins to communicate was from Voldemort having the Dark Mark branded on the Death Eater's arm.
Yep.
Why couldn't Draco use his arm? Is that what he used, or what did he use a coin? I don't recall.
He used a coin. He used a coin to contact Rosmerta, I think. The thing is that he used the Dark Mark.
Rosmerta doesn't
contact.
have the Dark Mark, right? So.
Exactly. And also, I mean, one, that would be a dead giveaway, and two, from what they were saying, Voldemort carries like the one mark that can contact the rest.
Right. Hermione has the one coin.
Exactly. I don't think it's like a two-way system. So there would be no way of Draco contacting anyone using the Dark Mark because obviously he doesn't have the one that communicates. You know, I mean, it's all speculation, of course, because there's no written proof of this, but that's, my guess.
Okay, moving on to, moving back to like the Horcrux topic. There was one Horcrux that was found when Harry and Dumbledore went out to the cave, and when Harry got back to Hogwarts after Dumbledore's death and all that, he opened it, and there was a note addressed to Voldemort pretty much telling him that he'll never find out who it was and that he knows his secret. And it was signed with the initials R.A.B.
And of course, this has caused so much speculation, and it's almost such an easy riddle for everyone to figure out.
It really is. Yeah.
That, I mean, in a way, everyone thinks, oh, we're right, we got this figured out. But are we really right? Is it
really Regulus Black?
J.K. Rowling might try to be fooling us like this.
But see, the thing is, though, that everyone who read the interview will know that Emerson did bring this up in that initial interview with J.K. Rowling. One thing that I asked Emerson after he did the interview was, what was the tone at that point? And he said that the way J.K. Rowling was saying it was, you're right on target, but I can't say it. That was the tone of it. You can't get that tone because obviously it's written down, but that is the tone that J.K. Rowling was using. Not to mention the whole argument about introducing new characters. The last thing J.K. Rowling wants to do in the last book is introduce a large amount of new characters.
Where I disagree with you is that we need to remember this is J.K. Rowling. She is the queen of deception. Look in the past books with Mad-Eye Moody and things like that. She may have just been trying to throw us off, throw us another curveball. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we don't know. R.A.B. could very well be Regulus Black. I could be wrong. It could be glaring me right in the face. But why couldn't it be someone's nickname? Why couldn't R.A.B.'s be someone's nickname? Or why couldn't it be someone else?
See, the reason why people think it's R.A.B. especially is because going back to the locket in the Black's house, it would make it exactly. It fits perfectly. I mean, if he did get the locket, that means he has to stash it somewhere. And she did clearly mention the locket in Order of the Phoenix. Right, so you know that there's a locket that can't be opened within the Black's house, and R.A.B. is the initials of Regulus Black.
His middle name could be Alfred, A-L-P-H.
Yeah.
Right, his uncle. And, it fits so perfectly that...
It does. But at the same time, she could just be pulling a big joke and laughing at us, Right.
It could stand for Ryan and Bertha.
Exactly. That's one of the arguments that they've made. The argument that people have made is that did Regulus put the locket there, or did he take the locket and replace it? And if he took the locket and replaced it, how did he do it alone? Because clearly, Dumbledore was not able to do that alone. So, and even in that case, why would Voldemort trust Regulus to put it in place? So it's one of those things that people will be debating about until the release of the 7th book.
Until we finally have all the answers.
I do think it's ridiculous, but there's no, like everything in Harry
Definitive
Potter,
proof.
there's no, exactly.
And you know what? Another point, he was a Death Eater, and only Voldemort's followers called him the Dark Lord. So when he addressed him the Dark Lord, it clicked on with a lot of people.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, during book 6, we saw Harry had a run-in with Mundungus Fletcher in Hogsmeade, where Dung was trying to sell the silver goblets from number 12 Grimmauld Place. So, do you guys think it's possible that Dung could have sold the locket that is the Horcrux in order that Harry needs to find to destroy Voldemort?
I think it's quite possible. I mean, Rowling doesn't mention something for nothing. You know, there's always a purpose to her mentioning things, and there's no reason to believe she didn't do this with Mcgonagall. You know, so
yeah, and she's been up to no good. So
she has. I mean, she's been deceiving us all the way, but I think she enjoys it because she gets to hear the theories that people are, you know.
See, in book 7, Harry's going to have to find some way to be able to track down these Horcruxes. There has to be something that identifies them, because why couldn't Voldemort just make like some old boot a Horcrux? You know, it's that type of thing. I know it's going to be the Founder's items, but like I said, then he's going to have to return to Hogwarts to do some research. Like, it was Gryffindor's sword, you know, or what could it be? The item of Ravenclaw's.
Well, from what people say, it's definitely not Gryffindor's sword. Reason being is that Dumbledore had knowledge of the Horcruxes by the time he received the sword, and he said he inspected it thoroughly. So I'm fairly sure that Dumbledore didn't miss anything. You know, she's made it clear that he has made mistakes, but at the same time, he's very powerful, and he's not one to let something sit in front of his nose without realizing.
These Horcruxes, they're just so involved and in-depth that it seems to me that all of Book 7 is going to be dedicated to these. And it can almost be called Harry Potter and the 7 Horcruxes. You know, although that would be pretty lame.
It would, but I mean, the whole topic of the book is going to be the Horcruxes. It's going to be that and him training.
I think that Harry's going to have a difficult job just trying to find the Horcruxes.
Oh, of course, because he's doing it almost alone.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, I don't see Ron and Hermione leaving. I don't see them leaving, although at the same time, J.K. Rowling did pose the possibility that Hogwarts won't be open, in which case they'd be available to help him. But I don't see, if it is open, I don't see them leaving Hogwarts. So I'm fairly sure that Harry has to do this largely on his own.
I completely agree with you.
You know, and that's some job.
Yeah,
so
definitely. Well, now that we've looked at, like, you know, more of the heavier aspects of Half-Blood Prince, there's something that I really enjoyed in this book was that what I thought was actually missing from Book 5 and Book 4 is the romance that happened in Book 6, and how we saw the relationships develop more, and how Ron and Hermione have actually started to become more into each other, and how Harry started to fall in love with Ginny. And I just thought that it's been a really nice touch in comparison to other books. What do you guys think?
This is an example of how this is a big transition book where a lot of things have changed, and this book has sort of settled the score with all the relationships and who's dating who and who's snogging who.
Right.
You know, it's just everything's pretty set now.
Yeah, and a lot of people were expecting that. Yeah, because, I mean, if you think about how old are they now? You know, they're teenagers, and all teenagers go through that stage, and a lot of people were wondering how she would approach the relationships, because it's a very difficult thing to just bring up relationships like that without focusing entirely on them, you know? So I think she actually did a fairly decent job. I mean, a lot of people were disappointed about the Harry and Hermione thing, but I mean, it did. It disappointed quite a few
And
people.
that's also kind of a
yeah,
touchy subject.
But it is a touchy subject. But at the same time, they have rights to their own opinions, and this is the way J.K. Rowling chose to write it.
I think that Harry and Hermione, like in fan fiction stories, and that ship, so to speak, is actually I kind of enjoy seeing those two characters be dating and stuff. But personally, I think it's quite apparent now that it really has no place in the canon series.
Well, it's
Exactly.
not only that; it's that J.K. Rowling couldn't write this in-depth relationship because Harry has to focus on his goal. And I mean, it would be too distracting for him to have someone there for him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think J.K. Rowling was thinking at one point that when she was beginning to write the series that it could be a possibility, but then she realized that there's no way I can write this in because it's breaking Harry from his goal.
Right,
It's
and
diverting him.
Harry needs Hermione for other things, not to be his lover, so to speak. And people need to realize that the books aren't entirely about romance. It's about this. It's a classic story of good versus evil, and it's about this kid who's trying to save the wizarding world, not about his girlfriend and who he's snogging this.
But at the same time,
It's-
people would just love to see Harry get the girl at the end.
And also, but see, I do see where J.K. Rowling's coming from, because love is actually the central theme in this book. You know how Harry wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for his mother's love. And
But right now in book 6, it's sort of like there's no time, or in book 7 probably, there's not going to be any time for Ron to be, hanging out with Hermione, or Harry to be,
right, the relationships aren't going to be like the typical high school or school relationship. The thing is that love is the power that Harry has. Love is the power that the Dark Lord knows not. So, and the issue becomes is that there may not be time for the traditional romance, but Harry and Hermione not Harry and Ginny, that relationship is still going to be there, and so is Ron and Hermione.
But I think it's going to be like a friend's relationship, to be honest. I mean,
Well, of
he
course.
he made it clear why he didn't want to get involved with Ginny,
But see,
and I think that she understood his reasoning.
right, I kind of have
Because
a beef about that, though.
he's lost everyone close to him, and he has no reason to believe that he's not going to lose Ginny if he does indeed
Yeah.
start.
There was actually some excellent foreshadowing in this book. In Professor Slughorn's, in one of the classroom scenes, there's this potion that makes you smell like the person that you desire most, pretty much like basically what turns you on, the pheromones that you like the most. And we hear Hermione say she smells freshly mowed grass and stuff. And then Harry mentions that he smells a flowery scent that he previously thinks that he's sniffed at the burrow.
Yep.
And the burrow and Ginny, so there's really this foreshadowing that went on. And if anybody's seen things such like Spider-Man 2, where Peter Parker tells her, "Oh, we can't be together. I don't want to put you in jeopardy," that type of thing. I think it's the same exact thing with Harry, that the relationship with Ginny is not over. He may have told her, I don't want to put you in danger," but she's going to be in danger anyways with things running rampant like this, and Harry's still going to be best friends with Ron. So wouldn't killing his best friend's sister, do the same exact thing as killing his girlfriend? So I feel that I don't think the relationship's over, that it's still going to continue to happen, and that, I don't know, I think it just helps to spice up the book, so to speak, a lot more than when there's a lack of romance.
And I think it also makes it a little more realistic. I mean, you can't expect these people to go through their lives without relationships,
Exactly.
So they're not immune to the effects. So
Right, and we've started to see hormones run wild as these kids start to mature,
Yeah.
and it's quite a different change, and it's really been nice.
yeah.
Well, now that we've discussed a lighter topic, there was a major death that upset quite a few people in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which was the death. It's okay, Kevin. Which was the death.
That's
of
not
the
him.
which was the death. Which was the
Kevin's a
death.
crybaby.
Oh yeah.
Which was the death of Albus Dumbledore, and there was a recent
could you
website
say?
that was released that if you guys want to take a look at it, it's dumbledoreisnotdead.com, where they support everyone, like where they try to make a front where they prove that Dumbledore really is not dead, and that Snape was acting on Dumbledore's orders, and that he really didn't actually cast the killing curse. What do you think, Andrew?
Right. Well, first of all, I think this site is very convincing, and they have a lot of good reasoning behind everything that they put into here. I was just going to go look at it now.
I think that one of their most convincing points about it is that how in this book they stressed on the spells where you don't have to actually say it out loud, nonverbal spells. And couldn't Snape be saying Avada Kedavra, but at the same time be saying some other fake spell in his head that caused Dumbledore to shoot up like that? Another thing is in all the other books, when we've seen a major character or just any character be killed by the killing curse, they don't get shot 50 feet in the air like Dumbledore was. They just normally what happens is they just collapse and they die. So there really are some things that are kind of different about it, you know. And the thing about this site is that even if it didn't convince me that Dumbledore really is not dead, in the end it helped convince me that Snape is not Voldemort's pet. He's really on the good side, which is really up to anybody's opinion. But I still think the evidence is there.
Although,
Go ahead.
at the end, when he was running away from the Hogwarts grounds with Draco, everyone was very angry at Snape. You know,
Oh, of course,
he was
yeah.
trying to avoid. Right.
Right. But see, do you notice how Snape didn't do anything to Harry, and he said, he's the Dark Lord's, everyone go, or whatever? I didn't understand why he couldn't have captured Harry and taken Harry to the Dark Lord. Why would he have to wait around and wait for the Dark Lord and Harry to meet on their own? You see
And
that?
it's
Are you
not only
talking about
that.
Snape?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not only that. I think that a lot of people the main reason a lot of people think that Snape is still good is that it's out of character for Dumbledore to be begging for his life.
Yeah.
That
Or just begging Snape in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
And that website, DumbledoreIsNotDead.com, really made an interesting point. Is that I believe it was in the first book that Dumbledore tells Harry, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next greatest adventure. If this is the case, why would someone who is so basically intrigued and interested in death be so scared of it and be pleading for his life?
Exactly.
So
but at the same time, I really do think that Dumbledore is dead, just for the reason that J.K. Rowling said clearly in her interview with Emerson and Melissa that it had to come.
Right.
You know,
I agree with you that
It's a
Dumbledore
perfect setup for book 7.
Exactly,
Right.
and I mean, he was, not to like mischaracterize him, but he was sort of the crutch that Harry was leaning on.
Right.
And
Yep. So
Harry
now he's on
had
his
to,
own.
exactly. I mean, now Harry's on his own, and it sets it up perfectly for what Harry has to do.
Right.
But I think the reason he was pleading for his life was because he was caught off guard. He didn't see Snape as a predator, and
Right, but
he probably should have paid attention to Harry
But at the
more.
same,
there are two sides of that.
Yeah.
Well, there's one way, if you look at it one way, is that Hagrid says he overhears Snape and Dumbledore talking, and Snape says that he doesn't want to do it anymore. Which really raised a flag in my mind is that Dumbledore made Snape promise to go through with the plan and to kill him if he had to. So when Snape comes out and gives Dumbledore the disgusted look like it says in the book, it's not that he's disgusted at Dumbledore, that he hates this man so much. It's that he's disgusted with himself with what he's about to do. And when Dumbledore says, "Severus, please," it's not, "Severus, please don't kill me." It's, "Severus, please finish me off. Go through with the plan.
Yeah.
Your position is far too vital to jeopardize." You see what I'm saying? And that it was necessary. Absolutely necessary.
And Dumbledore understood that in the end, Harry has to be the one who kills Voldemort. It's stated in the prophecy, and he stated clearly that neither of them had to follow it, but they both were. Okay.
Now
so
another thing. Oh, go ahead.
It's clear that Harry has to kill Voldemort, and I think that because Snape is on the inside, and because Snape is powerful, with how do you pronounce that? Occlumency?
Yeah, occlumency.
Exactly. Just because of his position, like you said, he's too vital to spare. And Dumbledore is sitting on the sidelines while all this stuff is going on. I mean, I'm sure he realized what he had to do, you know?
Now, another thing that is interesting, or the question is, we saw obviously Dumbledore died, and then when Harry went back into his office, Dumbledore's picture was above his desk, and he was sleeping. Now, is Harry going to be able to have any communication with the portrait? Because the portraits can talk,
Right.
but can they offer the same information
Kevin
when
and
they're dead?
Kevin and I discussed this before, and we basically came to the conclusion that it transfers their personality, but not like all the information that they have.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she's hinted at that as well. The portraits that portrayed mean or evil people tended to be evil. You know, they didn't have any memories other than the memories they gained while being a portrait.
right.
J.K. Rowling never really explained to us
She
how that
really
works.
didn't.
So
She really didn't.
Do you think Harry is gonna just assume? Do you think he's gonna try, or because I would think he would at least approach the picture.
Yeah, and not
see
to
what
mention, why would someone become a portrait and not a ghost? And has
But
it
see,
been
I don't
overpainted?
think that-
Has it?
I
know?
think that if it could, if the case was that, say, Harry's parents are dead, why couldn't he just have portraits made of them, then talk to him?
Exactly.
You see, so I really don't think that it's really Dumbledore in the portrait. It's just
It's just
a
his
mirror
personality.
of his personality.
Yep.
That makes the most sense because I don't see it very fitting that it transfers over and it's actually the person in
But
the
at
portrait.
the same time, that could be useful to Harry as well, because
Right.
Dumbledore seemed to be the person who focused Harry the most, and maybe just a glimpse of his personality will contribute to Harry in the seventh book. You know, and
So
that's what
is-
people have been hinting at.
Is McGonagall going to take over for Dumbledore if school goes on?
If Hogwarts is open, I think that they mentioned that she was the newly appointed headmistress. So
Right. Yeah, she said that.
Yeah, so I think that the school opens, it's going to be her. But the thing is, we're going to be missing a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher and a Transfiguration teacher.
That's also, see, a lot of people brought that up to me in emails as well. McGonagall asked Harry what happened, and Harry refused to tell her. And a lot of people thought that was strange.
Because
He doesn't
Well,
have
Harry
a
said
personal
it was because-
relationship with
right, that's
with
that Harry said
McGonagall.
he wanted to keep. Well, Harry said he wanted it was personal between himself and Dumbledore. So, he was probably too shooken up at that point too. But I also think Harry's not really ever going to explain it fully to anyone.
It's because he hasn't forged the relationship with McGonagall that he's had with Dumbledore over these past few
Yeah,
years.
that's true.
You know, he said that he's still Dumbledore's man, and that he's going to continue to remain loyal to what Dumbledore was trying to do and how Dumbledore was trying to save the wizarding world. So it's quite important that Harry continue to feed off the knowledge that Dumbledore gave him.
Yep.
And McGonagall's certainly not nearly as vital as Dumbledore was to Harry, and that it's really time for Harry to go out on his own.
Yep, definitely. One of the other things someone brought up to me is the pensive.
Pensive,
Yeah, what happens with Dumbledore's memories?
I think the memories will still be there because I don't know why the memories would disappear because he's extracting the memories.
Exactly,
for
and
others.
see, that's the thing that people were bringing up. What do Dumbledore, knowing that he's going to do something vital and something extremely dangerous, what would a man who knows that he's facing this huge danger put into something that could store his thoughts and his memories? You know, they think that it's going to play a part in what Harry does because he may be able to access some of the memories that Dumbledore possibly left for him.
Pretty much overall, Book 6 was basically a twist in the series, and another
really
one of
was,
the
yeah.
many twists that J.K. Rowling has continued to throw at us. And I really do expect great things for Book 7, and it's really going to be sad
Everything's
to see
set
this-
up now. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's going
really
to be
is.
sad to see the series end. And
It
I
is,
don't,
it
I don't
really
understand how J.K. Rowling can say that the book is going to be shorter than Order of the Phoenix when she has all of these loose ends to tie in.
Well,
I
did she ever say it was going to be short? I
she
remember
said that
hearing...
in the interview with Emerson and Melissa.
Well,
from
she
Leaky
she
College.
said she said specifically, and I agree with her fully. It's as long as it has to be.
Right.
You don't write a book for length, you write a book for content. So when after you're done writing the book, you look at it and you go, wow, this stretched this many pages. You don't write the book specifically to fill up pages, you know. So I think that J.K. Rowling is going to make it as long as she needs to make it, and in this case, she thinks as of now it may be shorter, but she really doesn't know. You know,
she said she has to have a lot of time to say goodbye, so there's going to be a lot of stuff. Definitely,
Right.
like Ben said, loose ends. So.
And I guess this ends the pilot edition of MuggleCast. If you have any questions or suggestions, please visit mugglenet.com/MuggleCast for all of our contact information. Also, you can see all the information to subscribe to this feed, how to access us through iTunes, and see our show notes. Tentatively, next week we plan on discussing the fourth movie, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, more in depth. So, I guess I'm Ben Shane.
I'm Andrew Sims.
and I'm Kevin Steck.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll hopefully see you all next week. That's all.
Good.
This is a metaphor for your business's journey. Sometimes it feels like the world is throwing everything it has at you, and to succeed, you need someone to guide you through. That's what Dell Technologies advisors do. They have the tech advice to help you navigate whatever challenges you're up against and get you safely to where you want to be. Call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL and do more with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro.